Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Claire Lister and I'm the Senior Program Coordinator for Economic Recovery and Livelihoods in Iraq. Beginning in 2018, we've been managing a program called the Enterprise Development Fund, which is an innovative livelihoods program that we launched in the context of large-scale economic recovery following the conflict with ISIS. So today we're going to be discussing that program as well as two other programs from Ecuador and from Lebanon. So we have a hybrid session today. We have colleagues joining us from Quito as well as from Beirut, and then we also have people in person with us here in Geneva. So with that, I'm going to pass to Federico Soda, who is the Director of the Department of Humanitarian Response and Recovery. Thank you, Federico.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce today's session on the role of local entrepreneurship in creating solutions for displacement and migration crisis, organized by the International Organization for Migration. In the next hour, we're going to discuss the crucial role that entrepreneurship plays in fostering economic recovery and integration within communities deeply affected by displacement and migration. As highlighted in the first periodic global report on the state of solutions to internal displacement, published by IOM's Global Data Institute and Georgetown University, economic recovery is a foundational step towards resolving displacement issues. This report, which reviewed the contexts in 10 countries, consistently found that economic barriers significantly hinder internally displaced persons from returning home or integrating locally. Many migrants crossing international borders are motivated by economic opportunities. That's nothing new. In fact, underlying much of the world's mobility is the pursuit of better opportunities. Another recent study by the IOM and the Migration Policy Institute, surveying people on the move across various regions, including Afghanistan, Costa Rica, and the Horn of Africa, found that about 65% of migrants are seeking to improve their economic livelihoods. However, while people may seek to improve their livelihoods, they can only do that effectively and sustainably if they can access the labor market. Therefore, economic inclusion plays a crucial role in the host countries. Competition for limited jobs and public services can create social tensions between migrants and local populations. This tension can exacerbate broader conflicts and instability. Traditionally, livelihood approaches for displaced populations and migrants try to promote their self-reliance by integrating them in the labor market, by developing their skills and connecting them with suitable employers, and to address the legal and social barriers resulting in labor market discrimination. These efforts play an important role in creating the economic conditions for durable solutions, but they're often not enough. When the local economy struggles and labor demand is low, these interventions are unlikely to succeed on their own. Local entrepreneurs play a crucial role in creating the demand for migrants and displaced persons' labor. According to the International Finance Corporation, the IFC of the World Bank, small and medium enterprises drive more than 80% of new job creation in developing countries. Clearly, the economic inclusion of migrants and displaced persons cannot ignore the fundamental role that the private sector plays in this space and in the economy. This includes the informal private sector, where migrants often find employment in small businesses, and therefore promoting micro, small, medium-sized enterprises and their expansion is also key to generating labor demand. Yet many micro, small, and medium enterprises struggle to grow into sustainable businesses. They face obstacles such as weak banking sectors and financial markets that are unable to provide the capital needed for business expansion. The IFC estimates that MSMEs in developing countries have an unmet financing need of $5.2 trillion every year. This is equivalent to 1.4 times the current level of the global MSME lending. While we lack good data for post-crisis settings specifically, the scale of unmet financial needs is evident. Migrant and displaced entrepreneurs are even less likely to find the financial capital they need for their businesses. They often lack the capital required to serve as collateral. They struggle to demonstrate their credit history, and they may face legal and social hurdles or business registration hurdles or permits and so on. Building on these challenges and needs, IOM has been actively working with local entrepreneurs through the Enterprise Development Fund, the EDF. And this EDF aims to create sustainable economic solutions for migrants and displaced persons. This initiative not only supports the economic inclusion we've emphasized, but also strengthens social cohesion and contributes to broader development efforts. Since its launch in 2018 in Iraq, thanks to the support of KfW, the German Development Bank, the EDF has expanded to 9 countries, focusing on labor-intensive industries that are key to post-conflict recovery and mitigating the effects of disasters and climate change. With that introduction, let me briefly mention and introduce our distinguished presenters for this afternoon's session. And to give us a deeper insight into how these efforts are materializing on the ground, our first speaker is Andrea Kaflish, who is a consultant with IOM in Iraq. And Andrea leads the livelihood research portfolio. He ensures that our programming is evidence-based and backed by up-to-date data. Today, he'll present the most recent data on the EDF program and explain its significant contributions to Iraq's recovery, illustrating the tangible impacts of our initiatives in the EDF. We also have with us Gisela Monsalvo, who is the Executive Director of the Ecuadorian Chamber of Innovation and Technology. And in partnership with IOM Ecuador, her organization has responded to the growing demand for digital skills by hosting data analytics and full stack development boot camps for migrants and the local communities. These initiatives, supported by IOM, help bridge the gap between skilled graduates and tech companies in need of their expertise. Gisela will discuss how these efforts are integrating migrants into Ecuador's tech sector and contributing to the region's digital transformation. Our final speaker is Sigireda Birhanu, the Deputy Director of Enya Lenya Besidet, a migrant-led organization dedicated to empowering domestic workers in Lebanon. Founded by migrant domestic workers and feminist activists, Enya Lenya Besidet tackles a range of challenges faced by migrant women from the global south in the Middle East, particularly in Lebanon and Ethiopia. Their comprehensive services include legal support, housing, food assistance, medical referrals, and skills training. And under Sigireda's leadership, the organization also focuses on advocacy and community outreach, striving to dismantle the exploitative kafala system and improve the lives of marginalized women. Sigireda brings her personal experience and activism to her role, championing the rights of migrant domestic workers and leading initiatives to support and empower the most vulnerable communities. I want to thank all our speakers on behalf of IOM, on behalf of the EDF, for their contributions, and all of you participating in person and online to this important discussion. We look forward to exploring these topics further and identifying actionable steps we can take together. Thank you very much. I wish you a very fruitful discussion session. Thank you. Andrea, over to you.
Thank you very much, Federico, for the introduction. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Let me just put the slides on, and then we will get started with the first presentation. So the Enterprise Development Fund, as Federico has mentioned, has been running in Iraq since 2018. I will give a bit of context about the situation in Iraq and the current recovery from the conflict with ISIS that started in 2014. Over 80% of the people that have been displaced since 2014 have now returned to their former homes. Most of them have returned between 2017 and 2019. But the rate of return has slowed in recent years. And we still have over 1 million people who remain displaced, and progress with this remaining million has been very slow over the past few years. Now, of course, there are a lot of different barriers for these remaining displaced persons. Not all of these barriers are economic, but the data that we see shows that economic factors play an important role in ongoing displacement, but also as a barrier to the reintegration of the people who have already returned and face challenges once they have gone back to their former homes. So the data that you can see on the screen is from some recent surveys that the IOM did in Saladin and Nineveh. These are two of the regions of Iraq that were affected most heavily by the conflict. And we see that these communities that were affected by the conflict continue several years after the conflict to show high levels of economic vulnerability. We see that sizable percentages of the IDP population, but also of the returnee and the stayee population, the host community, the people that were not displaced, have to limit their expenses even for food, or can just afford enough food for their families, and are struggling to put funds on the side to save, to invest in productive activities, or to build a buffer that would give them the resilience that they need to resist further shocks. Now, these barriers are not just barriers that we see in Iraq, they're barriers that we see in a lot of different post-conflict settings. And I think we can think of two key challenges when we are thinking about these economic barriers. The first is the living standards barriers, the fact that we continue to see years after a conflict ends, persistent gaps between host communities, IDPs, and returnees. And these gaps are multidimensional. They affect income, they affect labor participation, they affect savings and assets. They also affect well-being and mental health. And several studies that have been done across contexts, across the world, over and over again, find the same findings, the same living standard gaps. The second challenge is on the political side, on the social cohesion side. What do these gaps mean in terms of social tensions? Well, of course, when we have scarce resources in a community, this creates competition. And this competition is then fueling social tensions that we see when there is a new crisis can fuel conflict. So if we're thinking about community stabilization, if we're thinking about creating truly durable solutions for the people that were displaced, addressing these economic challenges is key. And you can see here what is our framework, our theory of change as IOM in Iraq, where we run one of the largest economic recovery portfolios among the international community in the country. And we divide our interventions across two groups. We have what we call push strategies that are working on the labor supply side. This means training people to have the skills that they need to find a job. It means supporting micro enterprise so that they can set up a small shop, they can set up a small business activity that they can do as a sole trader. But on the other side, and I think this is perhaps more innovative in an early recovery context, we are putting a lot of effort into what we call pull strategies. So these are strategies that work on the labor demand side. They're strategies that are trying to revitalize local economies and support business expansion among businesses that are already financially viable and successful, so that they can expand their activity and create more jobs. And this is where the Enterprise Development Fund is really coming into play. And what we're trying to do with the Enterprise Development Fund is to empower local entrepreneurs to be the engine of recovery. So why should we support the private sector? Why is this important in a nexus approach, in an early recovery after humanitarian crisis? Well, because across the world, SMEs, small and medium enterprises, drive 80% of job creation in developing countries. And post-conflict settings are no exception from this rule. In Iraq, over 1 million SMEs account for 2/3 of the Iraqi private sector. So it's clear that we can't think about real recovery without involving these actors. But in a post-conflict setting in particular, access to finance is a key barrier to the expansion of SMEs. And most SMEs in Iraq are not able to borrow the financial capital that they need to restore their activities, restore the factories and the shops that they lost during the conflict, and continue developing their business. Another important thing is that in many developing countries, and Iraq is certainly the case, SMEs are the primary source of employment for women and for young people. So specifically, people who are marginalized in the economy, often in the formal economy, are more likely to find jobs from small and medium enterprises. And so this is not just creating an economic recovery, it's also promoting the inclusion of the people that are normally excluded from the labor market. And so where EDF comes into play is as this innovative livelihood intervention, where we target SMEs that are financially viable, that have the potential to expand, that can commit to a credible business expansion plan. And we provide them with grants worth between $5,000 and $30,000 in a way that is tailored to the specific needs of the firm that we are awarding. And these grants are conditional on the achievement of milestones towards an agreed business plan. So we release them in several tranches that reduces the risk, of course, of firm or entrepreneur taking the money and running away, which is, of course, often and always a risk with any kind of grant approach. But they have to deliver towards the agreed milestones. This means that they have to create new jobs, and they have to invest into physical capital, into machinery, into developing the place where their shop is run, and therefore create potential for these jobs to be sustainable. And the market incentives that these firms are facing, they give us a way to ensure that this money is well spent, because the businesses ultimately are following their interest in developing their shop, but in so doing, they're creating sustainable job opportunities. And so since 2018, we've supported over 2,500 SMEs, creating over 12,000 jobs in 9 countries, most of them, however, in Iraq, investing $45 million and mobilizing $28 million in private contributions. Because what we are effectively doing is leveraging also the resources that these entrepreneurs have, and they want to invest in their business, but they lack access to additional finance in order to expand. And so this is just a personal story that illustrates, the practical implications of this programming. Jassim lost his factory. He lost all the machinery that he had to produce chips. And through the grant, he was able to purchase new machinery, replace the one that was lost during the conflict, and increase his output by 50% again. Najib is an example of the indirect impact of this and the jobs that are created. He lost his job when he was displaced, and then when he came back home to Mosul, he was able to find a job as a carpenter in one of the firms that was supported by EDF. And so we're really thinking about this, about the job creation. It's not so much about the direct impact on the businesses, but the indirect effect that we have on creating jobs that are sustainable in these communities affected by conflict. These are the countries where we have expanded as of now. So Turkey, Pakistan, and Lebanon in the Middle East, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Somalia in Sub-Saharan Africa, and Ecuador and soon Colombia in Latin America and the Caribbean. EDF has many adaptations. We have flexibly adapted this approach to target women, to target cultural businesses, to promote innovative or green businesses according to the context. And this is really what's contributing to make this a successful approach, and an approach that is tailored to the needs of the communities where we work. I think EDF Women is really one of the most successful of these adaptations. Iraq is the one of the most conservative countries in terms of women's participation in the labor market. It ranks second to last after Afghanistan in terms of female labor participation. And what we realized soon was that it was really hard to create jobs for women by supporting male entrepreneurs. The way to create jobs for women in Iraq was to support female entrepreneurs who were much more likely to hire other women in their businesses. And so we've invested close to $8 million over the past few years in 590 women-owned businesses, creating jobs for close to 2,500 women, which is making a real difference in terms of the communities where we are operating. And I think our TIF that you can see in the picture here is giving a very clear message about the broader impact that EDF Women has. It's not just about creating jobs, it's about empowering women to make a change in their communities. And I think this is something that we really value in terms of the impact that the project has. EDF Green, of course, Iraq is an oil-dominated economy, and we are trying as much as we can to support businesses that are investing in renewable energy, in energy-efficient technologies, and a lot in sustainable agriculture because of the impact of climate change, which in Iraq has really, really undermined rural livelihoods. And we see a lot of businesses, a lot of farmers in rural areas of Iraq losing their livelihoods, sometimes being forced to migrate to the closest towns in order to find jobs, and trying to support drip irrigation and other forms of sustainable agriculture is really making a difference for these rural communities. Now, I'll talk briefly about what's behind this process. So what are the systems that make it happen? First is the selection process. So of course, we want to screen the businesses that have the highest potential. And that's why we have this extensive multi-stage selection process. We call for expressions of interest. We then go through data that the businesses submit, and that is indicative of their capacity to succeed in their expansion plan. We then conduct a verification on the spot to make sure that the business really exists, that we are not, it's not a case of fraud. And finally, we have a senior investment committee that visits the business and makes the final decision. And these are different people that are making decisions, again, to prevent fraud, to make sure that the money is as well spent as possible. It's similar to the way in which we think about supporting local NGOs in a recovery setting, but it's targeted to the private sector, of course. The due diligence process doesn't stop with the award. We have a number of measures in place to make sure that the money is actually well spent. And of course, I mentioned the milestones and the conditionality in how the money is awarded. But there's also a number of automated quality control mechanisms in our information management system. And we have independent monitoring teams that follow the businesses over time. And a lot of this is reliant on a robust system from the digital side, which means that we have a way to track all the businesses that we have supported. And at any time, we can see exactly how one of these businesses is doing and where they are in terms of their milestones. Before concluding and handing over to the other speakers, I will talk a bit about the role that research plays in this program. And we really try to think of EDF as a data and research-driven program. This means that the research is driving the decisions that we make as a program. It's not just there as a complement to it, but it's an essential part of how we do programming. And we see research coming into three different steps. It serves to understand local needs through local assessments and screening tools. It serves to design and test the way in which we design the project. So we are doing some experimental evaluations in partnership with universities, including the University of Oxford and the Emory University in the US. And it helps us implement at scale. So we've been integrating machine learning tools and other automated processes in our information management system to process the data that we have about our beneficiaries. Now, I'll give you an example, which is a recent policy brief that we've published based on secondary data about the impact of regional instability on economic recovery in Iraq. And the three key findings were that there are three channels for regional instability to affect Iraq's recovery. First of all, regional instability is generating uncertainty, and this is negatively affecting investment and business confidence. Secondly, it is disrupting supply chain that SMEs rely upon. It's driving price inflation, particularly, but not only for food. And this is affecting businesses and households' ability to get to the end of the month and satisfy their needs. And then finally, oil price volatility from a macro perspective may be a short-term blessing for Iraq, but it's affecting the competitiveness of businesses that are operating in other sectors. And this for us, because we're focusing on non-oil sector businesses, is really important. So how can we think about this context, and then what is the role of EDF in this context? Well, we know from past shocks that EDF is not just contributing to recovery, but is also creating resilience against new economic shocks. And so we ran a study at the height of the COVID pandemic that compared businesses that were receiving the grants and businesses that were similar but not receiving the grants. And we saw a significant difference in terms of revenue, so in terms of the business performance, but also in terms of layoffs. Businesses that were supported by the grants were much less likely to lay off their workers. And when they were laying off their workers, they were doing it in smaller numbers. So this is showing that even when we are thinking about these broader shocks, these broader variations in the local economy, these grants have an important role to play in building resilience in the recovery phase. I'll talk about two studies that we have ongoing at the moment and that are thinking about how to link this with the development and the peace nexus. So one study that we have is thinking about how can we support SMEs to become more investment ready. One concern with this kind of programming, with giving grants to businesses, is that we may be distorting the market. But actually, this research that we're doing together with Professor Simon Quinn at Imperial College and Professor Muhammad Mekki at the University of Oxford shows that when our grants are being combined with capacity building, in our case, we're training business owners in accounting and in marketing, they can actually help make them more investment ready. They can make them more used to the kind of processes that the financial sector uses. And so more likely, once the support that we are providing through the grants stops, to be able to access private financial resources. And we've run a pilot study last year that showed a very promising set of effects. Marketing training that we're providing as a complement to EDF increased sales significantly. The bookkeeping training increased the probability that the firm would hire a professional accountant. And these were meant to serve as a proof of concept, but over the next 3 years, we're going to run a full-scale RCT, a full-scale randomized controlled trial, where we're going to look at the impact of these trainings when combined with the grants on 1,500 EDF eligible businesses. And so hopefully you'll see me again here presenting the results of this study and of the other study, which we're currently carrying out, and which is answering, I think, a really important question for us as IOM when we are thinking about economic recovery as a tool for durable solutions and stabilization. And the question here is whether livelihood assistance can promote social cohesion in addition to economic recovery. We're doing this project together with Professor Stephen O'Connell at Emory University and Professor Daniel Masterson at the University of California. They are world-leading experts in the role of aid in forced displacement crisis. And we're thinking about a broader definition of community impact. We're thinking about economic recovery, but we're also thinking about the reintegration of IDPs and returnees, so durable solutions. We're thinking about gender and social inclusion for women, for youth, for persons who have been displaced, and for marginalized groups, in particular ethnic minorities in the Iraqi context. And we're thinking about community stabilization as a form of peace building, as a way to reduce social tensions between the community that could fuel more conflict in the future. So we don't know yet, despite many studies that have been done, we don't know yet what the impact of this kind of programming is on social cohesion. It remains an open question. There have been contrasting findings, and we're really hoping through this study to answer this question and look at the indirect effects that these grants have on other people in the community. Indirect effects that can be achieved by creating other jobs, by offering new shops, new businesses that are serving the local community, and by creating a positive example for other entrepreneurs in the community. So hopefully I'll be back again in a couple of months, and we will have some interesting results on this. Thank you for your attention. And I think if you have any questions, should we do questions now or at the end? At the end, okay. So then in that case, I will hand over to Gisela Monsalvo, who is the Executive Director of the Ecuadorian Chamber of Innovation and Technology.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this event, and thank you so much for the opportunity for us of presenting these great projects that with IOM here in Ecuador we have been developing for the develop of our sector, but also to give more opportunities of jobs for the migrants that are here in our country. Can we go to the next, please? So I think that for start talking about this is important for us to show you the situation of the migration here in Ecuador. In 2000, migrants constitute less than 2% of the country's total population. But now in 2003, the last year, it is estimated that 871,000 immigrants represent approximately 5% of the population. Also, according from one research of IDB, according to this study conducted from then, approximately 20% of migrants residing in Ecuador are engaged in informal commerce, and 80% are actively seeking employment, particularly individuals aged 53 and above. This is really important to understand, but it's not that they come here only because we have great opportunities. Maybe it's because our location, but we have to create more opportunities because we are a country open for migration, and we don't have all the conditions. So we have to work in this, because as we see in this data, the problem is that or they don't have work, a job, or they have informal jobs. So this is not going to, as the people that talked before, this is not going to be a solution for their condition here in our country. By January 2024 in Ecuador, 54.6% of workers were found in the informal sector of the economy. So this is as the other information that we have analyzed now. This is also a problem that is happening here, and we don't used to focus on the problem, we used to focus on the solution, and that is why we get connected with IOM to create some projects that I am going to show you next. But first of all, this data, migration in Ecuador. The next, please. For the other side, it's important to know that our sector, the technology sector, is a sector that is in a continue growing. As we know around the world, this is a sector that is like creating new opportunities, creating new jobs, and it's a great way for entrepreneurs to create new solutions for the demands that have our people, citizens, and everyone. So what is happening in this sector, the digital sector? The biggest problem is that we have a global digital talent deficit. That means that we don't have the people with the skills to cover these opportunities of employment. Some data, the World Economic Forum says that in 2022, the digital talent deficit reached 48% in Latin America, while the global economy faces a deficit of 20 million workers. It is really important because here we have all the opportunities to create a good job for these people that need a job. Another data that gives us UNESCO is that companies in Latin America are in need of 2.5 million technology professionals. So this is not only around the world. As we see, all the research that all the organizations have made show us that we have here some employments that we are not covering. Also, it is estimated that by 2022, emerging technologies generate 133 million new jobs roles, while 75 million current jobs were lost, resulting in the creation of 58 million new positions. This is from World Economic Forum. This is also important to have in our mind because it's not also that what we have learned or what we were used to do, we can do in nowadays. This is really important for us to create our new skills, so we can be able to cover these new opportunities of jobs. And that is an important role. Education, creating new skills, digital abilities are now part of the needs that our companies have offered in their new positions and jobs. The next, please. That is why as the Ecuadorian Chamber of Innovation and Technology have an important role and a crucial role here in Ecuador, because we represent more than 260 companies, national and international companies that have a mission that is the same that we have here in the Chamber, that is promote the digital transformation here in Ecuador. And to know that technology is an important skill or an important fact that our companies need and our enterprise need for their development and their competitive development. So we work with all of these companies. That is why I am showing you this picture of the members of the chamber, because with all of them, we are working together to promote digital transformation, to reduce this lack of digital talent that we have, and to create an ecosystem that we can work together with all the organizations that can be part, so we can create a good opportunity for technology and for people here in Ecuador. The next, please. And I was talking to you about the ecosystem. In the other slide, you saw that we have 260 members of the chamber in different verticals like fintech, software development, e-commerce, digital platforms, digital marketing, edutech, health tech, and all the verticals that are around digital transformation. But in the other hand, what we have is all these partners, more than 80 partners that work with us together so we can have this mission. As you should know, around the world, we have seen that how they make the development real is working together, working like an ecosystem, working with all the partners. So that is what we are doing here at the chamber. We are like getting together all these organizations, innovation agents, international chamber, government entities, other business chambers. That is important because we don't work alone. We work with another chambers that they need to implement technology, and then they are going to need some startups that have their solution, or they will need professionals with the skills to implement this technical solution in their organizations. Multilateral organizations, as we have the honor to work with IOM, academia, that is really important, and media outlets. This is really important to have all of them together because we are working in what we can do and have the opportunity to make our projects have higher results. The next, please. So why we work together, and this is really important, why we think that we have to work together to have new opportunities, as Federico says in the beginning. It's really important to know how the enterprise are their way and how they are like created, and why they need funds or people or help so they can increase what they are doing. What is in Ecuador? 95% of the companies in Ecuador are small, medium enterprises. And in our sector, in the Ecuadorian technology companies, 92% are small, medium companies. This means that They don't have this challenge of recruiting digital talent. This also means that they need support so they can grow and give the solution and great solution that they are created as companies and enterprises. The next, please. So with these two opportunities and this challenge that we have, 1 year ago, we get together with IOM here in Ecuador that I have to say that they are really great in what are they doing in our country, what they are like having a big vision of how we can do. And when we have this meeting, what we define is that we need to give these important and technical skills to professionals, but also to help this sector that is in a constant growing, the opportunity for them to create a new jobs opportunity, to grow what they are doing, and to have this help. That is why the IDF was a really great opportunity for our country. So we make this pilot here in Ecuador. We launch here with us together. And I think this was really important, again, because as I told you before, we have all the ecosystem. So launching the beginning of this program together not only was opportunity for us as a technology sector that is marked here, it was also a great opportunity for other sectors that have alliances with us and that we have the opportunity to make them understand why it's important for them to have these opportunities and also to apply for kind of these projects so they can have more innovation in what they are doing. So we launched this program here and it was really important, and with these prioritized set sectors, manufacturing, food industry, hospitality and tourism, provision of professional services, restaurants and food services, technology and construction. I think this is really important because also they are focused on the reality of Ecuador. Not only in the opportunities as technology, they were also focused on what we have here. And for example, we have a lot of tourism here, but they still being small and medium companies. So they also need funds so they can innovate, so they can have new services for their tourists or for their clients. So this was really, really important for other sectors that are like really important for our economy here in Ecuador. And I think that that's also important in this program because they are focused on the reality of the countries and what they will do and what sectors with this are going to increase the opportunities of reactivate the economy here in Ecuador. So in this event, working together, IOM, CITEC, with all of their members and all of their partners, we made this event that was really important, and we have the participation of different stakeholders in the other international organizations, because these don't have to be a project that is once or that is only a responsibility, a good option for IOM. We need more organizations to be part of this. We have academia, we have representative of business association, as I told you, and a small medium enterprise from Quito. So we have all the ecosystem together, launching this event and getting to know this great opportunity that IOM with IDF create here in Ecuador. This is the one project that we do, that we made together. And this was really important because as we have here in the presentations that we have before, this is a great opportunity for a small medium enterprise to develop what they are doing. But if we look for the digital sector, we have this other problem that we saw before, that is to create the digital skills in the professional, so they can have this opportunity to cover these positions that are not covered because we don't have all the professional with this. So with IOM also, we asked them to help us and create 2 bootcamps to create these opportunities of people and getting together also these opportunities and these two projects. But the bootcamps also with the research that we have made here inside the companies that are member of CITEC and all the organizations that are partners, what we identify is that we need more professional with data analytics skills. We need more professional with full stack, net, core, and Angular skills that are for programmation. So with these two bootcamps, we prepare 95 individuals in situation of human mobility or vulnerability training. This was really important, and you don't know how they were compromised with the classes. They were always connected. They were really thankful about the opportunity that they have, because this was not only an opportunity for people that maybe don't have a job. This was also an opportunity for people that years ago they studied something around technology, but because of their situation, they were not with the information that is now like the skills that they need to have, but they have the basis. All of them have the basis, so they have the opportunity to learn in the model of bootcamps that, as you should know, bootcamps are short-term programs. They are really intense because in 4 months you learn what you should learn maybe in 2 years, but you are always practicing, you are always connected with the company. So this was a really great opportunity for these 95 people and professionals or persons that have this opportunity not only to get a job, they now have the opportunity to have a good job with a good increase, and not only an opportunity that maybe work here in Ecuador, because even if they are here in Ecuador for their situation, or maybe because they come back, Ecuadorians that come back to Ecuador, they can work online around the world, because this is the great thing that technology or these enterprises are doing. And this is what we know as digital nomads, that you can work anywhere you want or anywhere you have to live, and you can work for another country, it doesn't matter, but you can be working at your home or in different parts. Also, if we see this for women, this is really important, because maybe they have children and they have to still working at home and take care of them. This type of skills is a really important option for them to have this opportunity. We just finished these two programs, and for today we have 18 interviews. We expect that these have to increase. We want all these 95 people to get a new job, but as you should know, also we are like we have been in a important situation and sensible situation here in Ecuador. So now things are getting better. So now we can get this opportunity. So with these all projects, we get together in this important and powerful circle that is EDF gives us an opportunity for labor inclusion. Why we work together? CITEC have the companies with the need of digital talent to grow. Not only our companies, also the companies or the organizations that are partners of CITEC. IDF give these companies the funds to create new opportunities and improve what they are doing, but also the compromise to hire talent. So we have, for one side, the companies that need to grow, for the other side, the grants that will help them to grow. And with the boot camps, we have the people that they are compromised to hire with digital skills, that is what they need. So we get together these three parts that are really powerful, and that they are going to give the opportunity to have good jobs, to increase what they are doing, but with this strategic vision, having the digital skills, the digital transformation as a vision of how they have to improve what they are doing or innovate so they can be competitive with their competence. Next, please. And as a result of what I have been telling you, 6 out of the 13 winning companies of the IDF here in Ecuador are technology companies. And we are working with them together so they can realize what they need, what they are going to do, and what is going to happen with this connection. I think that here we are demonstrating the importance around getting connecting not only these organizations, CITEC, IOM, IDF, with all these partners and the members of the chamber, we are also demonstrating with this that working together is giving us the results that we are looking for. So we are really happy of these results. We are really happy to demonstrate that these companies, the tech companies, are in a constant growing, and they are mostly the 50% of the winners of this project, and we will be really compromised to still creating these opportunities, not only for the companies, also for these 95 professionals that now have a really good skills that around the world they are looking for them. The next, please. So that is all about the program that we are doing with IOM, with the great team that is here in Ecuador, that they have this vision of working together is the best way to make these results and great results that for our country here in South America is really a huge opportunity. With this, we know that we are going to change lives for the people. We really know that we are going to make this a great opportunity, and we are not leaving apart to this thing that technology sector, it's a really diversity sector, is a really open sector, is a sector that is creating new opportunities, is creating new jobs, is creating a new reality of the ways of working. So with these opportunities that you are giving us, and I really expect that we can still working together in new projects, in new grants, in new programs that we can do, because people need this. We have a lot of good enterprise here. We have a lot of new good startups, but we always need this support, and we need to work together to have the results that around the world they are having when they get together, working like an ecosystem, and everyone in the role that they have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gisela, for the excellent presentation and for giving us an insight into the role of CITEC and of the private sector in Ecuador, in a country that has witnessed such a huge number of migrants coming into the country as a result of crisis in neighboring Venezuela. And I will hand over now to our last speaker for today, Sigreda Brihanu, who is the project director at Enyalenya Besidet in Lebanon. As Federico was saying at the start, this is a migrant-led organization, and it gives us an insight into the role that migrants themselves play as entrepreneurs and as agents of change. Sorry, we're having a little technical issue, it seems. Just like I was saying that she's there.
Yeah, she joined and then she left. Questions?
Yeah, let's do that. So I think we are waiting 5 minutes for Tsigereda to reconnect. She had some technical issues. If anyone has any questions about the first two presentations, please go ahead. And for the people who are online, I think it might be easier if you type your questions in the chat, and then we will have someone here. There's a question and answer field.
Hi, thank you so much for to the first two presenters. Really interesting, and particularly interested in IOM's EDF fund. So I'm Aisling Quirk. I'm here from Visa with my colleague. Visa has a specialist team actually that's looking after how we can support the humanitarian and development sector. We work with a number of organizations in many different ways, from cash-based transfers to supporting SMEs. Also how we can leverage fintech and local tech companies to support some of the challenges at the last mile. And one of the initiatives we're working on is in Colombia with migrants there, in conjunction with a number of international NGOs. And so what you're doing with the Enterprise Development Fund is particularly interesting because it takes, okay, once the migrants they come in, they get set up, then it's how do you actually help them to build that resilience and integrate into the communities, etc. So would love to learn more kind of separately about that program in Colombia. But in the meantime, two quick questions. One is how are IOM's donors reacting to this? It seems to me that we need more funds flowing into these kinds of programs, which are really about building long-term sustainability and resilience. So A, how are your donors reacting? Are you raising the kind of funds that you need to raise? And secondly, what are the, and maybe it's related, what are the challenges to scaling up some of the programs?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hi, Tsigereda. Are you connected?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I've been here the entire time, but when I tried to speak, I found out that nobody's listening me.
No worries. No, we can hear you. I think should we let Tsigereda give her presentation,
yes.
then we will get to the question. But thank you for the questions that were really good ones. Tsigereda, go ahead. It's your turn whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm so sorry for the internet interruption, and I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to represent the fellow migrant domestic workers who exist in Lebanon. And also I'm so really I just want to appreciate for giving us this opportunity, and the introduction was amazing. Thank you for doing that. So to continue, I have lived in Lebanon for plus 8 years now, and I am the part of the problem, I mean, which is I am the victim of the kafala system, and I'm the former domestic worker. And that's why, like, we really think it's important for us to come together and to create a better future for the people who live in Lebanon, and also for migrant domestic workers who return back to Ethiopia. So Inyalenya founded in 2017, and the reason why we came together was it's because of the kafala system. The kafala system exists in Lebanon and all Arab countries, which is I just want to talk about it before I'm going into details. So as some of you know, kafala system is a modern day slavery, which is we are living in 21st century, and still the slavery exists in Lebanon and other Gulf countries. And it's visible for the people who know around, it's invisible for the world. And it's not normal to practice slavery system in 2020, I mean, in 21st century. So that's why, like, first we end up coming to Lebanon or traveling to Gulf countries without having information about the system, about the living condition, or the salary that we receive, the system that they practice, or how we will be treated in that country. We don't have that information when we travel to Arab countries. We travel from Ethiopia, Africa, Asia, and different countries. So we have the dream of changing our future life or supporting our family. That's the dream that we have, the imagination that we have, it's that. And after we end up coming to Lebanon or other Arab country, the reality is different, which is we end up like facing the system that practice the system and the abuse. It start and like whenever we arrive to the airport, at the airport start the abuse, which is when we first arrive to Lebanon or any other Gulf country, the first thing that they do is they confiscate our passport, which is our identity, our right to have with us, but they confiscate at the airport. After that, you know, we go to their house, and then, you know, it's a start. So the first thing after that, we're gonna sign the contract. The contract's written in Arabic, which is we don't have the explanation. We don't read it because it's written in Arabic. I'm from Ethiopia. Of course, I do read English and speak English, but the written is in Arabic. And I ask, like, translate for me before I sign my contract, which is they say you have to sign. And I even like ignore to not sign, but at the end they force me to sign that contract, and without knowing my right, without knowing what that paper says, what that contract says, I end up signing that contract. So as me, many others, they signed that contract, and after that, the abuse that we face, the non-payment of salary we face, and the human rights violation we face, and it's many to talk about it, especially in Lebanon. Many migrant domestic workers are unpaid for years, and also the sexual harassment, the verbal abuse that they face inside their house, and also the overwork that we are facing inside our employer house, make us to come together to be a voice, and also to establish this Inyalinya Besedet organization. Back then, when in 2017, when we started, we were just, groups that hoping to raise awareness about the reality, what's happening in Lebanon, to the people who are in Ethiopia, also for migrant domestic workers who exist in Lebanon, because many are there, they don't have awareness, even they don't know what they face, that abuse, which is kafala system exists. I didn't know back then. Now I know what the kafala system means. It means it's a modern day slavery. It's a sponsorship system that tie us inside our employer house. And once you are inside your employer house, you are under her or their mercy, and nobody will protect us, because we have no protection from labor law, the embassy, and our own government, because the labor law exclude migrant domestic workers from the law. That's why anyone can take advantage of migrant domestic workers who live and work in Lebanon. So that's why we create Inyalinya, and under Inyalinya Besedet, we have 12 programs. The first one is raising awareness, emergency assistance, legal service, women reproductive health, skill training, mentorship program, workshops, repatriation, advocacy, research, counseling service, and reintegration program. So we focused on these 12 programs because of the causes, the kafala system. Under the kafala system, those programs we established like in a year, which is we didn't establish once. The 2020 COVID, during the COVID, many migrant domestic workers are abandoned on the street by their employers on the street, some of them in front of our embassy, and nobody was, checking on us or fighting for us. That's why the first thing after raising awareness, the kafala system, we raise awareness about financial management. When we raise awareness about financial management, many migrant domestic workers, they end up going back home after 10 years, 12 years, 20 years of working time. When they go back home, they don't have money. They don't have business. They have nothing to, develop themselves or to, change their future life, because the money that they work, they keep sending home. When they go home, they don't have, their family spend the money without, caring about their, children who work in Lebanon. So after 10 years of working time, they end up coming back to Lebanon, to the same abuse, to the same system that they've been, facing for years. That's because of they didn't have money. That's why we said it's important for us to talk about financial management. When they send the money back home, they have to have their own bank account. Many migrant domestic workers are coming from village. Some of them, they are underage. Some of them, they are trafficked by human trafficker, by recruitment agencies, by agent, anyone will take advantage of us. And some of them, they are coming, illegally. They fly from Addis Ababa to Libya, Sudan, and then they end up coming to Lebanon. So those girls are, they don't have knowledge of all what's happening in Lebanon. Also, what they know is sending money to their family. So that's why after they end up going to Ethiopia, they have nothing, and they end up coming to Lebanon or traveling to Dubai or any other Arab country, which is they're gonna face the same abuse. So during COVID, we came up with the idea of doing emergency assistance. Under the emergency assistance, we supported over 2,000 domestic workers, migrant domestic workers from different nationality, Ethiopians, Philippines, Cameroon, Nigerian, all migrant domestic workers who exist in Lebanon. We support them with emergency assistance, and then we support them with the legal service, which is many migrant domestic workers, they do have accusation against of them, which is false accusation. Under kafala system, you cannot leave your employer house without her permission. You have no freedom of movement. So because of the abuse they face, because of non-payment of salary, they leave their employer house. When they leave their employer house, the employer will go to general security and they will file accusations saying she stole gold, she stole money, she did this and that. So whenever they want to travel back home, they cannot travel. They have accusation that, their employer file accusation against of them, so they cannot travel. So for that matter, we worked on legal service, which is we hire a lawyer, as Inyalinya said, and then we took over 200 cases that they have accusation, and then we support them and they get exit visa and they travel back home. So under that process, we have to pay penalty, we have to pay for lawyer fee, we have to pay for all necessary bills that they have. And then through that emergency assistance, also we found out there are many migrant domestic workers are single moms. Why they are single moms? They are single moms because of the rape that it happened to them, during their work time inside their employer house, and also it could be on the street because of the cause of rape, or others, after they have relationship, after the COVID, there's economic crisis, and during that time, their husbands will leave them with their children, and then their mothers end up with, with their children. And that's why we have a lot of single moms in Lebanon, and that's why also we work on that to send the single moms back home, and many of them also they traveled under our mass repatriation in 2020. So in 2020, we repatriated, including till mid of 2023, we repatriated over 800 migrant domestic workers with single moms. And then many of them also from prison. Many migrant domestic workers are in prison because of the accusation that filed from their employer house or from their employer, and they don't have evidence. One employer, she will have her worker for years without paying her salary. Once this worker asks for money, she will call for police, and the police will come, and without asking what happened, without having any evidence, he will take her to the jail, and then she end up serving, her time for the crime that she didn't committed. And then after years of facing, prison, she will go back home. When she go back home, she has nothing. She will go home without nothing, without money, without anything. And that's why like we provide tickets, service, and under their repatriation tickets, any bills that they have, we covered. And we have a skill training program. Under skill training program, many migrant domestic workers who exist in Lebanon, which is we do have live-in workers and live-out workers. The live-in workers, the one that working inside their employer house without having a day off, they work 24/7 from year till year until they go back home. Those are, you know, the live-in workers. The live-out workers, the one who left their employer house because of the abuse they faced inside their employer house, those are the live-out workers. And those are the ones who have freedom to do whatever they want outside. So some of them, they are community leaders. We have many community leaders. And for the public, for community leaders, we came up with the skill training program. Under that skill training program, we have soap making class, accessory making class, crochet class, bag making, pillow making class. So they attend that classes, and after that they attend that classes, they will build their own income, small income for their or community, and also for themselves to generate income and support themselves, also to have a small business. That's what we are doing. Still, we are giving that skill class training. And then we have research program. The reason why we focused on the research program, on December 21, 2020, Lebanon passed the law that criminalized sexual harassment, but that law also exclude migrant domestic workers, which is the majority. We are a lot in Lebanon, and we face sexual harassment in daily basis and public services and transportation. Anyone on the street, inside our employer house, we face abuse, which is the sexual harassment, but that law also, it doesn't include us. That's why like we work research our sexual harassment. That sexual harassment research we implemented in 2022, and on that research we interview on around 1,000 migrant domestic workers, and 913 they are the victim of the sexual harassment. And also that research was amazing. If you search Inyalinya Basadat, you will find the research on the public, and there's a lot more to know about Lebanon and also about the research that we did. And then we have the mentorship program, which is we mentor community leaders, because we uplift, and our organization focus on, you know, uplifting women, empowering women. It's empowering women is a key, especially here as migrant domestic workers. We cannot union. We have no right to union. It's a crime. It's a crime also to come together to support others. It's a crime. But beyond that, we are, you know, mentoring other community leaders. We are mentoring different people. So the skill that we have, the knowledge that we have, the challenge that we faced, to share. We share our resource. We share everything that we have with the community leaders to uplift, and also for them to, you know, establish their, you know, their income under our mentorship program. They have all access that we have for skill classes and all. So the other program that we have is reintegration program, which is we repatriated over 800 migrant domestic workers, including single moms. Once when they go home, they don't have income, or they don't have any source of, you know, income. So after they go back home, they end up calling, you know, Inyalinya. And then we said, okay, so we have to bring something to be a solution for the returnees in Ethiopia. That's why we sent the first people that we repatriated to college, and so they took 6 months course. It's hairdressing, fashion designing, and also, you know, it's more. After we sent those people, they graduated after 6 months, and then we said, why we don't open a polytechnic school to, you know, include more people who need support from Nyalinya. And then we open Polytechnic School, and under Polytechnic School, the first year we took over 200 returnees, and they attended that 6 months course, and they graduated in January this year. It was amazing, we create for them a safest place, and also to know that they are capable of, cleaning, capable of, just being a housemaid. They learn something to able to support themselves, and also to be independent, because when they go home, when they don't have money, nobody welcome them. Even their own family will not welcome them. So that's why we did, that. And also this year we are, registering more returnees from Lebanon, from Saudi Arabia, and the people who are returning from UAE and Somalia. We are including them to attend that opportunity, to have that opportunity to able to, improve themselves and to create small business for themselves, and also to have opportunity to go out and, look for work, and then to change their future life, because the life that they faced in Lebanon, it's worse, because we share their life story, what they faced in Lebanon. Some of them, they traveled from prison. We do have one case that she was in prison for 16 years, and now she graduated, and she's working, and she's doing good. So we really believe in uplifting and empowering, especially migrant domestic workers who are living in Arab countries. And we are so also happy to work with IOM. IOM is doing amazing job here in Lebanon, supporting migrant domestic workers from different nationality. During COVID also, they repatriated many migrant domestic workers, Sierra Leonean and others, and also Ethiopians that they've been stuck inside Ethiopian embassy shelter. And we are so grateful for humanitarian work that they are doing, and also for supporting Nyalinya sometimes. And so, yeah, thank you. I finished from my side. If there's more question, happy to answer. And thank you for having me and for giving me space to speak.
Thank you, Sigureta. Thank you so much for this great presentation. And it was really amazing to hear about all the great work that you're doing for migrant domestic workers in Ethiopia and Lebanon and elsewhere. Thank you so much again. So maybe let's get back to the questions. I don't know, Claire, do you want to take the questions from...
Cool. I will. I'll try and answer both of them together because I do think they're related. So we were really lucky when we launched the EDF in Iraq in 2018. There was a big interest from donors in pushing large-scale recovery, which included economic recovery, but also looked at other things such as infrastructure and shelter. But of course, economic recovery was really seen in the first few years of the conflict as the most important thing. So what is different about what we are doing is that we've launched this program which supports what we would call the middle class, which in Iraq is they're still quite affected people, but they are the middle class. And it was quite something that is different to what other organizations do in terms of livelihoods. Even our own staff, it took some convincing to let them know, like, what we're trying to do here. Yes, okay, we're finding a businessman, but what we want is for him to create work for people. And it's those people that we're most interested in targeting. And it's kind of built on this assumption that I don't think is that unreasonable, but which maybe within the humanitarian sector is, which is not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And so you cannot possibly just continue to give micro grants as the main way in which you would, respond to livelihoods in an economic recovery situation. And so when we arrived and we were proposing this new program, it was at a time when the donors were very interested in hearing what are some alternative approaches. And so very quickly we launched it with a pilot in Mosul in late 2018. And by 2019 had started a partnership with KfW, the German Development Bank. and they provide us funding. They provide funding from BMZ via KFW, and then that became quite important for us in developing the EDF as what you then mentioned as a scalable model. So what Andrea kind of very briefly touched on, and we could talk for an hour just on our IMS system, and probably another hour on all of our research and M&E that we do, because obviously, like Andrea said, this is a very data-driven program, and that is what has enabled us to scale it, so that we have a technical team that is based in Erbil, but by the thousands and thousands of lines worth of data is able to very closely manage the program, which then of course allows you, once you have a fully functioning program, allows you to then extend more, which is how we are able to then extend to other locations within Iraq. But then, as also Andrea said, was to look into adaptations and how can we adjust what it is that we're doing so that we can target either specific groups or specific sectors. And really, so that scalability, I think, was really built in from the very, very beginning. So then in terms of the donors, yes, okay, so we have KFW funding, EU funding via INPA, COICA. These are all kind of the donors that are coming in a context of transition or recovery, or however you want to call it. And those donors were quite open to hearing about other types of projects. So where it has been more of a struggle is when you work with your more humanitarian donors. So here I'm thinking, you know, things like PRM or CEDA and things like this, where they don't tend to want to fund these types of programs because I guess firstly it's a new program for them and it's unfamiliar to them, and there's a lot of concerns that they have primarily around risk management and things like that, and so with those donors we haven't been quite as successful. So then in terms of scaling it globally, we have been working with TRD here in Geneva, with headquarters here in Geneva to try and move it to other locations as well. And I would say that is a big issue, not a big issue, it is an issue for us, trying to explain to certain types of donors what is this new approach and why is it worthwhile, and how it can fit into those contexts. I don't want to take up all my time, but I'm happy to speak with you after. We could do hours, believe me. But anyway, maybe Andrea, there's another question online if you wanted to jump to that. I don't know.
Is there a question online?
I'll read it out loud. If I understand correctly, you make the grant conditional on a business plan and or the hiring of other people. Do you also give training to improve their business skills, or not always, and why? And if so, do you recommend it? Do you want to? Or okay, so on the first question is, do we make the grant conditional on a business plan? Yes, absolutely. And the primary objective of the business plan is you must create jobs. And as I was saying before, the purpose of the data is we now know very well what kind of business expansions are going to create jobs. So in as much as maybe it makes us be uncomfortable, if you're going to buy a piece of technology that's not going to require anyone working on it, we don't want to work with you. Like, good luck and all of that, and we hope you succeed, but that's not what we're interested in. And so what we do through the expansion plans is very clearly say if a business owner is going to purchase this generator and rehabilitate this building, is it really going to generate the amount of jobs that they say that they will? Because what we have agreements with our donors is what we refer to as cost per job. So we have requirements where we need to make each job needs to cost around $2,500. And we know if we invest $10,000 in this business, they must create four jobs. Yes, I'm doing this all. 4 jobs, and those 4 jobs must be sustained by the expansion itself. So all of that is set out within the business plan. And as Andrea was mentioning, there are also milestones, and those milestones are a risk mitigation measure. And so those milestones are attached to the specific expansion. In the first payment, you will buy this and do that. Therefore, once we've seen that you've done it, we will then go in and provide you with the rest of the grant. And yes, of course, yes, so I think about that. And do you also give training to improve their business skills? So yes, we do now. But when we first started in Iraq in 2018, the biggest thing we wanted to do was just find businesses that had been destroyed or people had just recently returned, and all we needed to do was give them cash, and they are business owners, they know way better than us, they don't want to hear from us about how we can provide their business. What they want from us is cash. They do what they need to do, and then they create their jobs. Now, as we've moved further and further away from the conflict, we are working much more closely with providing trainings to the business owners. These are things like labour awareness standard sessions, which is obviously quite a big issue in Iraq. And then we also do some business development services trainings to specific groups such as women. And this is where you have like a more standard curriculum around like marketing, bookkeeping and things like this. But it isn't something that we kind of do at scale, because the main point of our program is giving cash to businesses that are going to be able to do what it is they've told us they're going to do. Okay.
Yeah, maybe just one
Yes,
brief point on this is that one of these big studies that we're doing with the one with Oxford University and Imperial is looking precisely at this. So we're going to have different groups of enterprises, and we're going to randomly assign some to a group that is only getting the grant, some to a group that is only getting the training, and some to a group that is getting both. And this will let us understand and have rigorous data that backs up whether the trainings are actually useful, and if so, for which kind of businesses. And I think this is going to really help us then make a decision on whether we want to make this a standard part of the package or whether we want to reserve it only for certain groups of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, hi. I'm from Save the Children, Rwanda. I have a question. I think her name is Gisela from Ecuador.
Yeah.
Yes. From the boot camp in the digital skills, how did you get 23 companies interested in hiring the trainees?
Are you listening to me?
Yes. Did you hear the question, Gisela?
Yes, yes, and I think it's a really important question because that is why we make this program, as I told you, together, because here in the chamber, we have more than 260 companies that are tech companies and working in the industries, and one of their most important needs is to hire and to find a professional with digital skills. So what we did is to make research with them and define which are the skills that they are looking for now and where they are having more problems or more trouble to find this professional with these skills. So with that information, defining that what they are needing was just in data analytics, because you know that now and this last year and a half after all this boom of AI, we are needing more data analytics. So we make the bootcamp in that skill, and also in full stack and net core we did, because this is one of the languages that is most used nowadays. So we prepare these people with the information we have from our companies, and now we are making some connections, online connections, so they can get together and have some interviews and know what they need, together with what they have. So that's why it's really important to work together. Chamber that is representing the companies, academia that have all the knowledge to prepare these companies, and organizations that can support these programs, so we can have a program that has a high price with a grant that make this possible, or with a scholarship, so people with a situation that they cannot pay for this, they can have this help, so they can prepare in these technical specific skills, so they can be part of the companies that are needing. So it's not all a thing that we define or that we see that is now an innovation skill. It was because it is what we define, and with the research, we identify that is what our companies need. Also, if we are creating, for example, innovation in other industries, these are two skills that they are also always needed in other companies, not only in tech companies. This is something that they will need for companies that are implementing technology.
I have another question on how do you choose the participating businesses exactly? Is it only based on the business plan? Is it on prior, let's say, amount of years that they've been profitable, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it's a multi-stage process. We have some screening criteria at the start that make sure that the businesses are solid. So normally we focus on businesses that have at least 3 years of experience. We cross-check the information that the business owner provides with the information that its workers provide, and we request a certificate from a supplier of the business that ensures that the business actually exists and is trusted in the community. And we have a series of other criteria based on the business profile. And through this, we do a first stage of selection. Then the second step is an IOM staff actually visiting the location of the business and checking that everything is in place and everything is in order according to the information that they have provided. At that point, they fill a longer application questionnaire. And all of the businesses that fill this questionnaire are then visited by an investment committee visit team that is made up of 2 more senior IOM staff who then speak with the business owner, listen to the business plan, and make sure that the business plan is actually robust and credible, and that it's making financial sense and is sustainable in a way of creating these jobs without putting the business out of business and making a loss.
And then we have another question.
Regarding that piece, obviously the business plan would be speaking to how many workers they're hiring and that sort of thing. Is there any protections in place that they're not hiring people at below market value? That's number one. And number two is the donors and the UN clusters had an earlier meeting this morning, and we were talking about participation of stakeholders, and it's often that the interviews for the sort of the worker that would be hired, that level of stakeholder is interviewed and surveyed for data and input only, but then is dropped off for the rest of the process. So I'm wondering if in your research piece, are you going to look at sort of 2.0, including them in more, maybe part of that, whatever legitimate component could be had for them to participate in that business plan, so that they are protected, that they're actually part of that, a part of the program itself, and not just the recipient of a job.
You want to do the second one? I'll do the first one then. Okay, so on the first one, that is why we focus so much on what I was saying earlier about we want to make sure that the actual business expansion is legitimate, right? So what I meant was that increase in machinery or the rehabilitation of premise will actually lead to an increase in income that could sustain the salary of the workers. So because the whole purpose of the project is around job creation, we do have a lot of controls in place. So we make sure that all workers sign agreements with the business owner, and that part of those agreements, so basically like a contract, which is highly unusual in Iraq, but a contract that states they will be paid at least the minimum wage. And then often we actually find that there are many, obviously skilled workers that get paid well above the minimum wage. So then that information is then supported by both checks from our what we call operational staff, who will contact the employee to verify that the salary they're earning is what we have been notified of. And then separately we have an M&E team that does the same check. And so one of the ways that we kind of screen businesses in the first place is when what Andrea was saying, one of the screening criteria is of existing employees. If the business owner is telling us they're paying their employees $500 a month, and then we call an employee and the employees say we're only getting $100 a month, that's a bit of a red flag to us that that's not a business owner that we want to work with. So yes, we do have a number of measures in place to make sure that those workers are being paid at least the minimum wage, which in Iraq is only around $300 a month anyway.
Yeah, and I think in terms of making them central to the research, I think that's a really good point. So we have a number of initiatives trying to get perspectives outside of the business owners. So one of the studies that we're doing at the moment is looking at other businesses that are not directly targeted by EF. This was a concern in terms of the potential that we are actually moving customers from one business to another rather than creating new business opportunities. And we are looking at social connections. So we're trying to see if giving out these grants is also helping other people, for example, through donations or other forms of support that the business owners are providing. We haven't done yet a piece that's focused on the perspective of the employees, but that's definitely high up on our list of priorities for the future.
Are there any studies done with the future employees themselves or only with the employers? And second question, how many companies do fail this process to apply for grants?
So most of the companies, I'll take the second question first. Most of the companies fail the process of the application. I think we get 2 to 4%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have thousands and thousands of applications.
So there's huge demand for these grants, and we're really, selecting the best candidates for this. And you see, sometimes there are businesses that apply multiple times to the program. Sometimes they make it the second time or the third time that they apply. Sometimes they don't. Yeah, unfortunately, the need is really high because private financial markets are not really an alternative in Iraq for businesses. They are highly dysfunctional. And so access to these grants is really one of the few ways that businesses have to expand. The study on workers, I mean, we survey workers as part of our standard M&E sort of tool, and we make sure that they are actually there, that they're actually employed, that they're getting the money that the business owner is telling them they're getting. We haven't done a dedicated study looking more at their perspectives and other dimensions of their experience as workers, but as I was saying to the other attendees, that's definitely high up in the list of priorities.
But maybe I can just say, because we've moved on now, we've done so many labour market assessments and what we would call EDF market assessments in Iraq, that we've moved on from doing those types of assessments towards this research that Andrea is talking about. But in those labour market assessments, we talk to employees, meaning workers in the general area, in the same way we talk to employers in the general area, not specifically the employees in the companies we're going to work with, but we do take on the perspective of the employees and unemployed people as well, and youth, I think, as well. I think that's right, isn't it?
Maybe the lady back.
My name's Lauren Phillips. I work with the UN Volunteers Program, and we've worked with UNHCR before, and it was similar but different, but it was really about getting upskilling refugees in the countries where UNHCR have a presence, and kind of really giving them training opportunities to kind of the skills development. One of the big challenges that we had was the workforce rights of those population groups. Was that something that you encountered in terms of the migrants that you've been working in different countries, or was, I guess that was part of the selection process for where and how to roll it out in different countries?
Andreas, are you there? Did you hear that question? Because he's in Ecuador and he might be able to jump in with an actual example. Otherwise, I'll give you one. No? Okay, so yes, that is very difficult. And one of the reasons why I think we were able to scale in Iraq so much is we were working in an internal displacement crisis. And obviously everybody has a right to work there, and you're kind of facing other barriers that you're trying to overcome. So for example, I mean, and it's not the same everywhere, and that's why I was hoping maybe Andreas could jump in on Ecuador. But for example, in Lebanon, refugees are allowed to work in certain sectors. And so therefore, when we rolled out the EDF there, those were the sectors in that we were targeting. But of course, it really does limit then like the extent to which you're able to kind of grow the program there. But that is definitely like a big concern, not a big concern, but a challenge for us when working in refugees and also migrant contexts as well.
Thank you.
But if you want to know more about that, I can maybe put you in contact with our colleague in Ecuador, because they have developed the whole program as well. That I think they've figured out the answer to that, but I just don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, actually a follow-up question kind of on the selection process, because you had mentioned earlier, or you just said the majority actually fails the application process. And you talked, I think, about the gender challenge, obviously, in bringing more women into employment. And from my experience, I work for GIZ, so I've actually implemented a business grant facility. And the challenge can often be that especially women-led or youth-led businesses actually don't make this first stage. So I was just wondering if you had any positive experiences with implementing measures leading up, for example, to the application process to empower those who might not make it, especially if it's the first time they're applying for something like that, or they haven't been in the game of fundraising to know how it's done.
As one of my favorite topics, and we can talk for hours about it. So yeah, so what happened is when we first started the EDF in 2018, we were just trying to pump money into the economies. And of course, we did notice, not unsurprisingly, that the program that we had set up wasn't capable of targeting women. And so and women were just not kind of passing through in the same rate. I would say that they were passing through in more than what they would in the normal economy, because I mean, sure, we put in kind of random things, you know, you've got to go and make sure you do focus group discussions with women and blah, blah, blah. So maybe we were able to find some female. So what we had to do is we did 2 different rounds of research. The first round just looked at the EDF specifically, which is what were the barriers that the women entrepreneurs who had applied to our program and who failed to get through the program, what were the specific barriers? And so then it becomes things like, and certain criteria that we had in place were those barriers, right? And we'd put those criteria in place to do risk mitigation within the program. So this includes years of experience, which Andrea mentioned, and there in the EDF what we call standard is 3 years, and we've reduced it for women to only 1 year. We also have collateral. It's not collateral, it's like contribution, owner contribution. You know, you need to demonstrate that at least 30% of the grant you're also putting into, and we've reduced this for women. We also find, of course, that in the Iraq context, a lot of female business owners work from their homes that we were not allowing under the EDF, but which we do allow under the EDFW. So the first step that we did was to really look specifically at our program and how do we change it to like positively discriminate and allow these women to access the program. Then what we did is we did more research to find out what were these other factors that women face, not just the barrier within the program, but structural, cultural barriers within Iraq that stop women from then being able to participate in the program. And this then goes to your point around, yes, they have a lot less experience, they have a lot less education, they don't have the same level of networks that other male business, their male counterparts do. So what are those other kind of what we call, you know, soft skills can we help the women to build so that they are then better business owners themselves? And so the EDFW program that we have builds in a lot more of the business development services. We've started a commitment-based savings program as well. So this is where we encourage women to save over a period of time, and then they get a kind of bonus at the end, and allows them to interact more with financial service providers. And we've also done behavioural insights in a behavioural insight study, and it talks a lot about the role of masculinities within Iraq and how do you work with families, which are often male-headed. So even though your program is directed towards women entrepreneurs, you can't ignore the fact that these women are entrepreneurs in a much bigger context than them. And so it has taken us a number of years, but it has, I think, been why we're so proud of it and why we always kind of bring it up is because we have been quite successful. And so those, what is it, 500 female business owners. I mean, it's incredible. 30% of our grants now go to female business owners, and the private sector in Iraq has an employment rate of 2%, you know. So yeah, I would say it takes a lot of specific like action on the behalf of the program team to not just talk to women, yes, 50% tick boxes. You actually have to meaningfully be doing something in your program in order to bring those women in. And they are always our best business owners as well. They are super motivated. They are super cool. They're really strong. We take all the donors love them. I love them. Everybody loves them. They are like really wonderful, you know, women. And it is such a different, total different to what you would expect from Iraq. So I only imagine all over the world there's going to be females just like that. So anyway, I told you I could talk for hours.
Yeah, maybe just to add that the same model we also use for other marginalized groups. So we have an EDF Tamir adaptation, which targets IDPs who are still in camps. And of course, they don't have any resources with them to restart their business. And so we also make it easier for them to get into the program with the aim of rebuilding a business that they had before, starting a new one. And we have an EDF innovation one for startups and youth entrepreneurs. Okay, I think we're out of time, but if there are any other questions, we can chat after the event. Thank you very much for coming, everyone.